Hello and welcome. You're watching this very special edition of India Sense coming to you live from Tianjin. I am in fact standing in downtown Tianjin, about just a few kilometers away from where Prime Minister Modi will be in tomorrow, and also just a few kilometers away from where this SCO summit will take place on Sunday. And we at NDTV will get you all the details, all the updates, and India Sense will tell you why this is a summit where all that matters is what is India's stance going to be. We're going to talk on that and much more, but first up, let's get you the headlines. The India-Japan economic tsunami, with Japan pledging $68 billion as investments for India. Prime Minister Modi says the India-Japan partnership can diversify in its trade basket even further. Ahead of his China visit, Prime Minister Modi says important to work together. The elephant dragon tango is underway. Will the China visit lead to a large reset remains to be seen. Normalization has begun. Will the reset finally take place? Tianjin will hold the answer to that. Another day, another rant from Donald Trump's aide, Peter Navarro, whose oil rant against India continues, says using US dollars to buy Russian oil. Peter Navarro's rants are further deteriorating and impacting the India-US relationship. Will that feature in the talks in SCO? We'll tell you more. And India is ascending in how, viewers? GDP growth rate clocks upwards of 7.8%. GDP hits a 5-quarter high, beating all forecasts. Viewers, top story on the show, a partnership as old as time. Now growing, in fact, at bullet speed. Prime Minister Modi in Japan, the focus continues to be on building and ensuring that there is further fillip to the India-Japan economic partnership. The two countries deepen their strategic and defense ties. Remember, this comes in the wake of growing rhetoric from Donald Trump and his administration. What began as a correction of trade deficits from America's side is not all about lecturing, bullying, and talking down. In fact, even here, with regards to both India and Japan, both countries have been at the receiving end from Donald Trump and his administration as well. But this visit of Prime Minister Modi to Japan was not just about Donald Trump's tariffs, much more. Everything from infrastructure to development aid to the future partnership in terms of Japan pledging more aid and development assistance to India going forward. We're going to talk more on that. But first up, let's listen in to what the leaders said.
मानते हैं कि जापानी टेक्नोलॉजी and Indian talent are a winning combination. जहां हम हाई स्पीड रेल पर काम कर रहे हैं, वहीं नेक्स्ट जनरेशन मोबिलिटी पार्टनरशिप के अंतर्गत पोर्ट्स, एविएशन और शिप बिल्डिंग जैसे क्षेत्रों में भी तेजी से प्रगति करेंगे.
India is bringing transformation to the whole world through innovations. Japan can also boast of advanced technology leading the world's growth. When we think about Japan and India relations going forward, we need to take advantage of each other's strengths to bring solutions to our challenges and to help each other.
Well, viewers, as far as this partnership is concerned, it has several layers to it. One is the demographic aspect to it. Japan is struggling with an aging population. India's demographic dividend is probably one of the best answers that Japan can get to its generational problem. That's one aspect. Second is greater collaboration with regards to AI, critical minerals, and ensuring that supply chains remain robust. Already, there has been a lot of talk about how India should make sure that it's able to better proof shock-proof its supply chains, and particularly ensure that critical mineral supply remains under control. And lastly, the other aspect of the India-Japan partnership, that is the defense partnership. Both are members of the Quad. So what if Donald Trump wakes up every second day and wakes up with yet another thought? India and Japan continue to have that stability and consistency in their defense partnership, which is why this is an arrangement, this is a partnership and a relationship that is only set to prosper from here on. Turning attention now to the other big story. I am here in Tianjin, viewers, taking you through all aspects of the upcoming SCO summit. It is the heads of state summit, but all that is being talked about is India's presence. It's about Prime Minister Modi being in China for the first time since the Galwan clash, for the first time in 7 years. Yes, there is a lot of backdrop and backstory to this. India-China relationship itself has been about cautious movement forward. There are external factors that are adding to it. They are acting as potential push factors for the two countries to probably look to find some common solutions. And before we talk further on this, I want to play out this report for you, viewers, to set the stage and context for why this summit and Prime Minister Modi's presence here could actually be very game-changing, not just for India, but for the global world.
A high-stakes diplomatic moment is just days away. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will travel to China for the SCO summit on September 1st. It will mark his first visit to Beijing since the Galwan standoff strained ties in 2020. But this visit isn't happening in isolation. It caps nearly a year of careful, calculated engagement between the two Asian giants. It all began nearly 11 months ago at the Kazan BRICS summit in October 2024. That's where the first thaw was noticed as Prime Minister Modi met the Chinese President Xi Jinping. PM Modi met the Chinese President on the sidelines of the BRICS summit and agreed to work towards a peaceful and stable relationship by displaying maturity and mutual respect. They also highlighted the need to not allow differences on boundary-related matters to disturb peace and tranquility along the LAC. The Kazan talks were followed by key milestones. The two countries agreed to phase disengagement at the LAC, followed by a revival of economic ties as an Indian business delegation visited China. This followed a series of high-level meetings between Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and his counterpart, as well as Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and his counterpart, and President Xi, the first such meetings in over 5 years. Then came the big visit, Wang Yi in New Delhi just last month. It was the first high-level visit by a Chinese official in years. From reopening trade routes to restoring people-to-people exchanges, the steps taken in recent months signal a desire to move beyond the shadow of Galwan. The road ahead may be complex, but with dialogue and diplomacy, they are again exploring common ground.
Viewers, this report told you what all has been the updates as far as the India-China relationship is concerned. Yes, both sides are wanting to move past Galwan, but there are several other aspects that need to be kept in mind. This is a summit that is taking place for the first time since India conducted Operation Sindoor. It is the first time that this summit is taking place where Prime Minister Modi will be in China, since our Deputy Army Chief, Indian Deputy Army Chief, said that Pakistan was the laboratory of Chinese weapons during Operation Sindoor. Almost 75% of Pakistani arms are now Chinese owned and Chinese in origin. That is the other aspect of this. There is the trade aspect where Donald Trump's tariffs are forcing countries to recalibrate and renegotiate. Then there is the people-to-people ties where there have been progress, whether it's Mansarovar Yatra, whether it's visas. But then there is the national security and defense concerns. There's a reason why Defense Minister Rajnath Singh did not sign the joint declaration, because Pahalgam terror attack was not condemned. Will that feature in these heads of state discussions is the key question. A bilateral will happen, and the outcome of that bilateral will decide not just the roadmap for India-China relationship, but for the roadmap for how India will negotiate through these global trade and political headwinds. All right, let's get in Lisa Curtis, a woman who knows, someone who knows this entire region very well. Lisa Curtis has a very keen interest and also an expert in knowing this entire region very well. Lisa, let me start with you. Your first thoughts, or rather expectations, about the upcoming bilateral meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi. How optimistic are you that this could actually move beyond just photo ops to something concrete in terms of taking the relationship forward?
Well, I think the significance of Modi's visit to China for the SCO meetings is because of the deterioration in the U.S.-India relationship. I think all eyes are watching, what's happening between India and China because of President Trump's criticisms of India, the 50% tariffs that he has levied now on India, which will be, quite devastating, I think, for the Indian economy. So there's a real crisis in the U.S.-India relationship. And so people are going to be watching, what does this mean for India's approach to China? And I think what it means is that India will be forced to accommodate China. And, we look at the first Trump administration where the goal was really to work more closely with China, to work more closely with India, to be able to manage China's rise. Now, in the second Trump administration, what President Trump is doing is alienating India and forcing India to accommodate China. And I think we're going to see that at this SCO meeting on Sunday.
Okay, but Lisa, let me then ask you in terms of most feasible outcomes. There's a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of difference of opinion, and there are also completely different perspectives. Trade is important. You said Donald Trump is forcing. Of course, Donald Trump's rhetoric will be important, but India cannot completely ignore its national security and defense concerns. In your assessment, what could be the most feasible set of outcomes that you think will come out of the summit and out of the bilateral that's expected between the two leaders?
Well, I think that there could be an agreement to, open the Indian economy more to China. This has been something that China wants, making travel easier for businessmen who want to, come to India, look at investment, more trade. So we may see some announcements on the economic and trade front. But I think it's important to note that India still likely sees China as a strategic adversary because of what happened in the 2020 border crisis. And things are not completely fine on the disputed border between India and China. There are still tensions there, and there's still a chance that things could escalate again on that border. So I think that, yes, India is, being forced to accommodate China more. We'll probably see some announcements on the economy, on trade, on travel. and an overall reduction in India-China tensions. But that doesn't mean that India now trusts China or wants to get closer with China and try to attend a India-China-Russia trilateral meeting. I don't think India will go that far. But the fact that India is even considering a trilateral meeting with Russia and China should be alarming to U.S. policymakers.
So there may not be a Russia, India, China trilateral, or RIC is being talked about, but the entire optics around India and Russian oil purchase is likely to feature, isn't it? Because that's really the premise of Donald Trump's rhetoric. It's incorrect, it's irresponsible, it's hypocritical. We've been saying that. But it's how important do you think that is going to be in these talks that Prime Minister Modi will have with President Putin?
Well, I'm not sure I see the issue of Russian oil being a major talking point for India. Of course, Russia may raise it, China may raise it, but I think India has reduced its dependence on Russian oil over the last month or so. At least the state-owned oil companies have done so. And, the hope is that India will continue to move in that direction because I think that would help reduce tensions between the U.S. and India. So my sense is I think India would be rather careful when it comes to the Russian oil issue, because if that becomes a major talking point among, the leaders at the SCO, including India, that, countries should be able to continue their imports of Russian oil, that is really going to irritate President Trump even more and, could presage even a further deterioration if it can deteriorate any further between India and the U.S.
All right, please, Curtis, appreciate you joining me live on India Sense ahead of the crucial SCO summit right here in Tianjin that we have been covering. We will continue to get you all details and updates on that. Well, viewers, one thing is for certain, that this summit will have an impact in terms of major political realignments in the world. Whether Russian oil is going to feature or not remains to be seen. But the implications of that are most likely to be talked about in the two key bilaterals that Prime Minister Modi will have with his Chinese and Russian counterparts. So on that note, a quick break on India Sense. I come back and talk more on the other side about another day, another rant. What's up with Peter Navarro, and why is it that Trump administration's rhetoric against India is getting sharper by the day? Stay with us. We get you that story. Wide-angle story on the show. Well, one wonders what's up with Peter Navarro. Another day, another rant coming in from Peter Navarro. At this rate, he is going to run out of adjectives. But what people worry is, at this rate, the sane voices in Trump administration are also going to run out of options to be able to salvage the larger India-US relationship. So what all has Peter Navarro really said, Trump's bully in chief? This report tells you more.
One man's ego now threatens to unravel a decades-old strategic partnership. US President Donald Trump's tariff assault against India has crossed all the red lines, weaponizing baseless accusations and now linking India's oil trade to the devastating war in Ukraine. But this week, the rhetoric turned even more reckless. Blame for the war, once squarely aimed at President Putin, has now been bizarrely redirected at India. Trump's former trade advisor, Peter Navarro, labeled the Russia-Ukraine conflict as Modi's war, even calling India the Kremlin's laundromat, an inflammatory and misinformed attack. Echoing the same narrative, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham accused nations trading with Russia, including India, of fueling the war machine and killing innocent civilians, warning China and Brazil of facing the same fate. Amid this fog of contradictions, Trump's trade team appears deeply confused as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent slammed India's discounted oil trade with Moscow, only to pivot days later, calling for closer US-India ties. What Team Trump fails to grasp is that global trade isn't a switch to be flipped at will, and diplomacy isn't driven by ego. India has uniquely maintained dialogue with both Russia and Ukraine since 2022, a rare and vital bridge. But Washington's rhetoric now risks turning the peacemaker into a scapegoat. If President Trump truly wants to end the war and secure the Nobel Prize he so covets, it will require partners like New Delhi, not public vilification. The question now, is US foreign policy being shaped by strategic vision or by one man's need to dominate the headlines?
It seems it's one man's ego which is ensuring that an entire bilateral relationship gets compromised. At least that's what's happening right now. Viewers, if you got a chance to hear what Steve Witkoff said when he and several other Trump advisors met in the Oval House office, you will understand just how much the Trump advisors are actually looking to score points against each other in front of their boss. And all of them come back and talk about the Nobel Prize. Steve Witkoff even said that if there's anybody who should get a Nobel in the history of the Nobel Prize, it is Donald Trump. That's the context of this entire war against India. But what people don't realize, what Trump doesn't realize, is that he may or may not get the Nobel. He may or may not end the Russia-Ukraine war. But at this rate, he will most certainly do long-term, possibly permanent damage to the India-US relationship. Well, turning attention now to the other important political development that happened in India's neighborhood this week, which was in Sri Lanka, where saw a major shift in Sri Lanka, where Ranil Wickremesinghe, the veteran Sri Lankan politician who helped steer the country through its worst economic crisis in decades, became the first foreign president to be arrested under anti-corruption laws. The 76-year-old leader was taken into custody in Colombo last week over charges of reportedly misusing public funds for a personal trip to Britain in 2023. The unprecedented arrest triggered a political storm in the island country, with opposition leaders accusing Lanka President Dissanayake of trying to get rid of his political opponents. While released on bail this week, the case marks a first for post-independence Sri Lanka and raises important concerns and questions about the political situation in the country. All right. With that, it's a wrap on this very special edition of India Sense, coming to you live from Tianjin in China. Viewers, we're going to get you all the details and updates of all that is likely to happen at the SCO summit. It could be game-changing. It could most certainly change the direction of India's key relations and partnerships around the world. And where will you hear that? Well, on India Sense first.
The biggest Modi visit in 7 years. The biggest India-China icebreaker. The biggest angle of the tiger and dragon. NDTV reports from Ground Zero, China.
NDTV is the first Indian media crew that has reached here in Tianjin in China to cover the SCO summit.
The news breaks, the body language, the mind games of a new beginning.
We at NDTV will keep getting you every aspect, every update, every development first from Tianjin.